And welcome to Our Time. Heralded as Australia's best tribute act, the 64 presents the biggest hits of the 60s and other old school classics in an energetic Las Vegas style performance. Well, that's what the quote says, and here's the man who made it all happen.
And wrote the quote.
And wrote the quote in the first place. Ben Francis, welcome. I wish you'd dressed
Nice
up.
to be with you. Yeah, just came out of bed straight here.
I know this is one of the jackets from the boys in the show.
It is indeed.
So, Ben, I've known you for quite some time, probably ever since you were a kid.
I reckon it was about 11 or 12
But I
hours.
do know that your mother is a singer and has a choir. How much influence did she have on your young life, both professionally, musically, and all those other things that mothers do?
A lot. I would often come home from school and singing was just a normal thing in my house because Mum would be singing at home and singing with her quartet and her choir. So it kind of became a very natural thing for me, and therefore I entered this scene thinking that there wasn't any different.
That's the way life was.
Yeah,
Everybody
exactly.
sang.
Exactly, everyone
Yes.
sang.
That's like when you have children and you're on telly or radio or whatever, they think everybody's on radio.
Yeah.
Every parent's on
Normal.
radio.
But yeah, so then I kind of entered that youth music theatre scene here in Adelaide.
How old were you then?
I was 11 or 12. We just emigrated from England because I came out here in 2008.
Right, so that must have been quite a challenge in your life, going from one country to the other.
It was, and I have two younger brothers who kind of don't remember it because they were young, but I was 8 at the time, which was old enough to remember what I had left behind, and I had friends, and so it was really difficult, but it was, definitely the right
Was
decision.
that the hardest thing, leaving friends behind? Do you think?
Yeah, it was, and some of my earliest memories from England were leaving my friends that last day of school. In England.
Interesting.
It was one of my earliest memories.
Put that in the book.
Yeah, I know.
So I know that you're not only a gifted singer, you can hear the harmonies in your head, you play keyboard, you've performed in so many different shows, playing so many different roles. You just recently played in Amadeus.
Yes, Amadeus at the Star.
That's pretty amazing, a huge role.
Massive show, yeah, massive role. It was
Did
really
you have
fun.
to play in that, or was it a fake piano? I can't remember.
Trade secrets, Malcolm. No, it was a fake piano. I can't play Mozart.
I don't know. I've watched you accompanying people. I've watched you playing and singing at the same time.
Yeah, Mozart's a little out of my league, though.
So where did all of that come from? Did you study piano from a very early age?
With piano, I mean, I always studied singing. My voice was my main thing, and so in primary school, I started learning how to sing, and I took that right through high school. But with the piano, I kind of just taught myself. I started playing. It was a funny story actually. In year 7, I started playing the trombone, and then I realised I couldn't play the trombone and sing at the same time. So then. In about
of course not.
Yeah, exactly. In year 9 or 10, I switched to piano and kind of just taught myself how to play.
Well, you could have done that.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
You know, there's something in that.
That would have been an original act. That's definitely a fringe act, a singing trombone player.
That's true.
Okay, so then you've worked in a whole lot of different theatre shows, amateur theatre shows, community theatre shows, and so on. So at some point in your life, you must have said, is this my lifetime career? What am I going to do?
Well, it's weird because I don't think I've ever actually had that moment. It's always just been like, this is what I do. It's not, it wasn't a choice. It was just kind of like I kept going, which has been amazing. And 90% of my life is performing arts now, and I think that's really special, especially during COVID and coming out of that, being able to stay in that community and in that industry was difficult. But
so when did you start the 64? So it's the numeral 60.
It is.
And the word
the 64. 4 of us who sing 60s music.
There you go.
Boom, boom. We actually started singing together in high school.
Who were the original boys?
So back in the day, it was Lachlan Williams, who's still with us, Kyle Hall, who's also still with us, and Tom Russell. And I was in year 10 at the time. We were all in kind of different year levels. I was in year 10 and we started singing the music of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons because our teacher was Michael Griffiths, who obviously is an amazing cabaret performer, and he'd just come off the Australian tour of Jersey Boys.
Michael's been on the show, by the way.
Of course.
Well, yeah.
So your viewers would know him well.
Yes.
So he started teaching us this song, and it was more these songs, and it was more of in a choral setting, and it went from there.
And you thought, oh, we like these.
We fell in love with those intricate harmonies that were so prevalent in that era, especially in the Frankie Valli stuff. You've got that kind of 4-part stack.
One up high.
Exactly. And then the tenor, Barry and bass. And so we trimmed the group down.
What are you?
Boy soprano. I'm the Frankie Valli part. Yeah, it was always like bass, Barry, tenor. What do I call me? Soprano. But yeah, so we then trimmed the group down to 4.
Just on that point, that's really interesting. Do you think you retained that upper register from boyhood because you just kept singing through?
I did.
Because I did the same until I ruined my throat.
Yeah, it's...
Not from that, but from...
No, it was in the... my first vocal teacher... as I was going through puberty and my voice was changing, she said, "Do not stop singing up there because you know you have this very short window of time to keep that voice, and if you keep singing through it, you'll keep it, and if you don't, and so many people find this, I've got a cool new voice and just sing there and stay
drop
there,
down, and stay there forever." It's a shame actually because male voices have that breadth in most cases.
Yes,
it's
they do.
Remembering how to use it.
Yeah,
really.
and that muscle is very quick to stop working if you don't use it in that very short window of time.
Did you, like with your schoolmates and stuff, did they appreciate what it was you did and what you now do?
Yeah,
or did they think you're a bit old-fashioned?
Well, I think there was a bit of both, but I think they respected the fact that as a group we kind of went, this is what we want to do, and we put everything into it, and we still do put everything into it.
But you're really good.
I mean, thank you.
You are really good. No, I mean, the whole show is an act.
Yeah.
It's not just 4 boys singing. It's all the movement, it's all the stylised stuff that you do, it's the costume. And now you're working with a live band as well.
We are. It's our 5th year with a live band. It's all been kind of an organic growth model because this is something that I created at high school and kind of operate out of my living room. So it's and now we're playing these huge theatres and it's a bit crazy.
Well, I guess that's the ongoing thing. You've got to find the new market because in order to stay working, you've got to find where's the next place to work.
Exactly.
Once people have seen the show, they won't come back immediately. But they are coming back, aren't they? In these country tours you were doing during the Fringe, you were really filling the house with people.
And it's quite amazing because last year we did the show in these regional areas and we really struggled. And this year, it was an amazing
nobody knew what
tour.
you were doing.
Well, exactly, and it's that breaking into that initial market is really quite difficult.
Yeah.
But then word of mouth spreads and people do come back, which is lovely.
Because that music just has a place in everybody's soul, really.
Yeah.
And plus the fact that most people know the songs, even if they weren't alive in those years, because we've all heard them on a commercial.
Yeah, exactly.
They've all been knocked off for the commercial.
A lot of them. Well, that's how we kind of realised. We were listening to Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys, and we were like, "Oh yeah, I know that. It's from TV."
Exactly. You know the hook of those tunes.
A lot of the choruses.
Yeah.
And one of our shows in Whyalla a couple of weeks ago, we had a lot of kids in the audience, and we don't often have young kids, and they were dancing, and it was like, wow, this music is truly timeless. I mean, these kids were born in 2010, and they were just having the best time.
I suppose in many ways they're the classics of they will be the classics of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because the really popular classical music, we actually all know those tunes as well.
Exactly.
That was written 200, 300, 400 years ago.
Exactly. And what I find interesting is music that's written today, you can, when you know that music of the 60s, you can kind of realise how much of it was based off of how much of today's music is based off of because, the 1960s were so experimental. They just tried anything and everything.
Well,
in terms
it's
of
my
music.
era. And it was a lovely time because they're tuneful.
Yeah, exactly.
And
melodic.
The lyric flows comfortably, it rhymes properly. And I think the success of a popular song is when people can just sing it in their head. They
and
don't
it's
have
catchy.
To, yes. But you know the tune, you know the lyric, even though you might have some funny words instead of the proper lyric.
Yeah.
You're doing any of those? You should do some of those. Because some of those songs were parodied so well with people that thought they were the lyric. There's some rippers.
There's a whole show in that.
There's a whole show in that, yes. So who produces your show? Is it all you or do you bring in choreographers? What do you do?
No, it is all me, and all in-house.
And do you write all the arrangements for the band?
Yeah, so all the vocal arrangements I do. Our 9-piece band, we've got 2 amazing musicians, Emma Simpson-Smith and Marco Callisto, who write our band charts.
Right.
And then the choreography we kind of do as a 4 in-house too. So everything is like us.
So it's a real proper job.
Yeah, it is.
And this is what I think a lot of audiences don't realise. What they're seeing, you look like you're having such a great time up there.
Yeah.
Oh, it can't be work.
No, well, that part isn't. I suppose. Performance.
It's getting it all together in the first place.
And I think people don't
Huge amount
realise.
of
I mean, the tour that we just finished, I started that in July last year, kind of putting it together and booking the venues, and it's a massive. And so that 2.5 hours that they see us, and that's what that's actually a 6-month.
Yeah. I completely understand.
Yeah.
Speaking of understanding, we'll be back in a tick with Ben to talk a little bit more about the 64. Our special guest in this episode is Ben Francis, who instigated the group called the 64. Why 64?
Yes, well, it was a...
And I've sort of asked you this question before, but these names, as you said, sort of organically came, but you could have been some other weird name which is sort of popular at the moment.
We kept it quite simple, really. We kind of... I remember it actually.
What are the initials of the 4 boys? Could have been one of those.
It could have been
the B.
Not many vowels there, so it would have been a little hard to pronounce. But yeah, we were sitting around a table and we kind of were we came up with all these names, and it was like, I think it was Lachlan's dad, Craig, who is actually our technician.
Yep.
He kind of came up with it and was like, well, you sing 60s and there's 4 of you.
Well, Craig's dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how important has it been to have that family involvement with the group?
Yeah, it's amazing, really. It is a complete family affair. I mean, my dad is an accountant. He helps with my budgets. My mum helps with a lot of the admin and the emails. Craig, who's Lachlan's dad, is our technician. He's mixed every show that we've ever done.
Well, he owns Mosaic.
He does, Mosaic AV.
Which is a huge firm that puts stuff into almost every show.
Exactly. Yep. And Lachlan's mum used to choreograph for us when we were first starting out. So it has, and
she was a dance teacher and ran a dance school.
Exactly. So connections. But yeah. So
no, but see, this is in many ways this is like a family affair.
It is,
but it's an inherited thing as well. I think as a group, you've got your family support who understand it because they've been in the business.
Exactly.
So they're helping to make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, you've been compared to other groups doing similar sorts of things. But you are actually quite different. Did you consciously go out to be different, or?
Well, I consciously tried to make it. I wanted to make it unique. I didn't want to completely. I mean, I wanted to present an accurate slice of the 60s and a holistic slice of the 60s, but I wanted to anchor that in kind of contemporary times. And that's why, so our band is a 9-piece and it's got, 2 trumpets, a trombone, a tuba and a saxophone. Now that often wasn't...
unusual,
yes. Yeah, and so, but what it does is it creates that kind of modern kind of wall of sound.
Right.
So it still has that contemporary feel. And has that kind of Las Vegas-y...
See, that's good because, yes, the wall of sound was very much...
Yeah,
that thing, wasn't it?
Exactly, and just swapping a few of the instruments around and playing with those arrangements a little bit.
Because a lot of the songs you're doing are Motown songs, aren't they?
Yeah,
so
quite
that
a few
wall
of them.
of sound was very much
exactly, and that rock and roll kind of wall of sound too. So,
okay, so we're talking about the group, but we haven't shown you the group in performance. So here's just a little clip of what they look like and sound like. I love that, Ben, because, my teenage years come back. Oh, no, I know I must have been only 3 in the 60s. I'm sorry. No, but those songs, they do stick in your brain, and seeing you perform them in that way is just fantastic.
And that's one of the things that we love so much, that kind of the audience having that trip back to memory lane, and it's that nostalgia.
But it's not just the memory lane, it's just good entertainment.
It is, exactly. And that's why, you know, often when we have younger people come in, they're like, oh my gosh, like, was this what it was like in the 60s? I was like, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Pretty much. So you've influenced a lot of kids yourself, because you've also taught singing and you've been involved in directing or other stuff. Where do you feel you're going with your career? Do you feel you'll be going to do this for a long time, or?
I hope so. I've always been passionate about education, and through COVID, that was when I kind of found the producing side of things. I mean, and as I said, you know, at the start, it all happened organically. The producing kind of came out of having to, because I wanted to take the 64 further, and therefore I had to become a producer. So it kind of happened on the job. I didn't kind of go to producing school.
It doesn't really exist.
Well, that's true.
Really.
But yeah, so I just kind of trial and error.
There should be a school called How to Lose Your House.
Because
all producers go through those periods.
Yeah, well, especially during COVID. I mean, I was this kind of emerging producer. I hadn't, you know, done much, and there was, you know, it was very scary last year. And it was, and there were no ticket sales, and there was, you know, a lot of people to pay, and it's terrifying, especially when I was 22 at the time. But
you've also worked for the State Children's Theatre Company for a brief time, and you're also a journalist in your spare time.
I am.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I work at Glam Adelaide, which is great because I get to write about, as a producer and a performer, I often, rely on journalists and rely on that coverage. And so being able to then turn that table and kind of go, well, I'd like to now give back. And so I like writing about, you know, all those artists, and especially, you know, during Fringe time, which has just been, I was able to write all of these different Fringe shows for Glam Adelaide, which was awesome, and support them, just like people have supported me.
So in your life, where do you feel the future's going? Like the old saying, what do you want to do when you grow up?
You know, I just want to keep producing, I want to keep performing, and I want to keep sharing this amazing music.
How important do you think it is to have young producers like yourself around?
Well, I think it's extremely important because, you know, they are the future.
Of course.
But
you're in a very lucky position, I suppose, that a lot of people wouldn't be in, that you've had that family support to give you that platform to work from.
Totally.
But also you've had a really good education across the board in music theatre as such, this sort of cabaret work as well.
Yeah.
I know you because we worked together in a show, one of my shows called Teen Dream.
Yeah.
Which was
quite a few years ago now.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
Was that before 64?
I reckon it was the same year.
Was it?
It was as we were doing that we were kind of singing that.
Because that was basically about 5 guys who were putting something together and becoming a star in a reality TV show. There's an interesting thought. Is there value, do you think, with an act like yours to do one of the reality shows like Australia's Got Talent or one of those things?
I've always considered it. I just don't know how well it would go. I don't know, really. Because I think to be honest, I think part of our show is like being in that audience for that 2-hour thing. It's that, you know, energy.
It's nothing like seeing it live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's why I've always been hesitant to kind of do something that's translated onto film.
I suppose it just takes you to a wider audience that are watching TV.
Yeah. It would be an easier way for sure to get that, you know,
but it's the competition thing that I think demeans the artist's ability, because
100%.
it's putting you up against you, and they're usually completely different yous.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I like leaving all that competition at the door, and we don't do that this show because we want to compete. We do it because we love the music, and that passion and the energy from the audience is what drives us. So
yes, that's a very interesting point. You give, but you actually get back.
Oh, 100%.
And when the two things collide, it's magic.
Yeah, and that's why it's like you've got to be there. You know, that room is just, you know, electric.
And it's only ever going to happen that way once, is the truth. Because little things happen in all live performances that only ever happened once.
And that's why I love this kind of show, even as opposed to musical theatre, when you're locked into a track. We do a different show every single show. It's something different. The audience gives us something different. We give something different. It's.
Can you change the format of the show much?
We change it a little bit depending on things, and you know the banter is obviously different every show, and we chat.
Well, I was about to say that. How much banter goes on? Is it pre-scripted or
no,
is it...
not pre-scripted at all.
Okay.
We kind of have, you know, this is what we want to get across here, like a one dot point. And that one dot point could last for 5 minutes, and then we're like, let's sing again.
Well, sometimes with a group like this, it's like a group of brothers. How many arguments do you have?
Not one. We have not had an argument yet.
Is that because because you really genuinely love what you do?
We do.
Yeah.
We literally do. It's for
and
all
that
of us.
will come across,
Yeah.
doesn't it? That
Yeah.
really comes across, that joy of we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Speaking of being all in this together, we have to take a short break again, and we'll be all in this together in a tick. We're talking to Ben Francis about his group, the 64, and that's a singing group. It's not a complete number.
No.
I say that again because it's the numeral 60 and the word 4.
It is.
And when you see that and you see 4 boys in jackets like this, you'll know that this group is coming to town. Do you see yourself as a band or do you see yourself as an act?
It's an act, I reckon, because obviously we've got the 9-piece band behind us, and then, the whole thing is an act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been sort of doing on setting up virtually a national tour. So you did Perth.
Yes, so it was our first interstate trip in January.
Oh,
earlier
really?
This year. It was, as a group.
I'm surprised.
We were terrified. But it went really well.
I saw the Facebook post.
Yeah, it went really well. We sold out our shows and came home with the Best Music of the Fringe award. So we
Brilliant.
went over and stole their awards.
And
great.
you've just done the Fringe. Now, you were accoladed by the Fringe as well.
We've won Best Music during the week for a couple of years, which has been amazing to have that support.
So when can Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania, all of those places, Canberra?
Yes, stay tuned. We really
You've
do.
got something in the making, though, haven't
There
you?
is something in the making, and we're really trying to take that next step as a group. And
Do you need though more like a touring company that has the experience of touring, so that you can just be the act and have somebody else take care of all the things you've had to do?
I tell you what, I have said that to myself at 2 a.m. on many occasions when I'm still at my laptop, and the answer is yes. I mean, and I think inevitably
That's the next stage.
it is the next stage, getting someone through the door that can go, yep, let's put that there.
I think it's a shame we don't have TV variety shows anymore as such, because your show, your act, is the perfect thing to be able to sit at home in a Tonight Show type environment to have you guys performing.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, who knows what the future
Who
holds?
knows?
It's just a wonderful thing that you've achieved
Thank
with
you.
the other boys, and the other boys are,
Lachlan Williams, Jack Conroy, and Finnegan Green.
and you've had a couple of other boys in the group as well.
We
haven't
have Kyle Hall,
Yes.
who's off in Sydney at the moment. Jordan Tomlenovich,
Yep.
who's actually recently joined the cast of Mamma Mia.
you? I know.
on the tour.
He was in 9 to 5 before
He was, and Tom Russell, who's in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
So you'll have to have a big
all happening.
reunion with everybody. Which,
Exactly.
Have you done that already?
We have actually.
Yes,
We
at
did it last
Theberton
year,
here, was
at
it?
Thebe. We brought everyone back.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was last.
Well, it's time for us to say goodbye. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks for
luck in
having
the
me.
future, and keep yourself nice till next time we see you on Our Time. Bye.